So
Hello.
the session for today is SA Citizen and HEX-STAR in Citizen Science. And our speaker for today's session is
Hello.
Mr. Hugo, Durantini Luca, and he is NASA's citizen scientist and astronomy student at IATE. And our next speaker for our today's session is Sumit Banerjee. He is currently pursuing his PhD in theoretical physics at Clemson University. So, without further ado, I would request Hugo to start with today's session.
Okay, hello. So I go first.
Yeah. You can start up.
Okay. I will turn on the camera. Oh, there you go. Hello. I am Hugo, like I was presenting. I am from Cordoba, Argentina. Um, and I am in citizen science since a long time ago. Prepping this talk made me remind how much time I already passed. So I will try to start with a bit of a backstory because sometimes it's important to see how you get where you are currently at. And in my case, I was thinking that when I started my journey, there was not much regarding citizen science. I will not say at all, but was a pretty new concept in the time. I started to get interested in astronomy and citizen science and what I was able to contribute with science way back in the 2009, that when I marked my start in all this. And back in the day, there was not too much you can actually do regarding directly contributed with any scientific project. One of the few things that they were, and still exists, was Boeing, that if anybody else knows this platform, is a platform for distributed computing. And I started with that since I was unable to find back in the day any other project where you are able to contribute. Okay, distributed computing is kind of limited in the sense that you donate your computer and you set up your computer to contribute processing data for several projects, but pretty much that is your involvement, keeping care that your computer keeps running the tasks, um, and see was developed inside that project. The one I started, sadly, 3 years now, I think, is not already active. Was SETI at home. I think uh, everybody in astronomy knows about that project, and currently keep running some of the project like Einstein at home, for example, to fill the gap, leave as the SETI when that was closed. That was where I started, but I feel the need to contribute more, to be able to be directly involved, to interact with science team because that was very limited. And that was when I started to dig up more things. And the first one I came about, and then now it's currently inactive. At least I was unable to find the site or make it work, was Stardust at home. That was also my first interaction with something related with NASA, because even it's a really old starship by now. Stardust at home was a very novel concept where when the spacecraft come back to Earth and delivers a sample or aerogel with interstellar particles, and people was able to help analyze that. So that was my first taste of direct contribution project where you were able to interact with the data. After that, came about Ice Investigation and Ice Hunters. That was a project aimed to find alternate targets for New Horizons. I think everybody knows also about New Horizons. Um, so Ice Investigation was the first iteration. Ice Hunter was the second when they moved to Universe. And that was where when I landed in Su Universe, because again, everybody was kinda learning how to do things regarding citizen science. There was no huge site in that moment. Su Universe was kind of the first when they started with Galaxy Zoo. I didn't mention that one, but Galaxy Zoo is what started everything in Su Universe. And there was I when I landed there, worked in that project until it was finally wrapped up. And okay, I started to search, okay, what other thing I can participate. I was testing several small projects regarding galaxies. No offense for people working in galaxies are great and all, but galaxies always miss something for me. I don't quite found them completely interesting. So I always gravitate toward stars, exoplanets. Maybe my bias thanks to SETI at home, probably. So that was when in 2014, the start 2014, while I was testing other projects, I came across with the launch of this detective. We call it 1.0 because yeah, we are currently in another phase. I will try to explain a bit that, but there is so much that I will spend the entire talk speaking about this detective only. Um, that was launched in January 30th, 2014 by Mark Kushner. We'll speak about a bit Mark and the science team when I am reaching my end. Currently, the project is still going on. Phases for several phases, 2014 to 2019, 2020 to 2022, and the current phase. But before speaking about a bit more of the project, oh, I can speak about it at the same time. First, why I was interested in this detective, because this detective is a project where you can find the place where the planets form. That was my main interest in the moment. Exoplanets and all that may be found in ET. Or you can always dream. Um, and okay, was an easy to enough to data set to deal with. Sorry. I can share the. Give me a sec. I leave everything at hand aside that. I can quickly share. Should work because it's a very small video. Let me see. I can screen share it. If the audio doesn't work, don't worry. There is no voiceover in the video. It's only a small presentation, and you can see the type of image that we deal with this detective. That was also that grabbed me initially because it was easy to deal, easy to use. Oh, sorry, didn't activate the audio. There you go. Again, don't worry if the music doesn't work. There is no voiceover, only the subtitles. The speech of the project hasn't changed in all this time, almost 10 years now. We have changed a bit the way we work with the data, but pretty much the base is the same. The interface was a bit different. So that's this. That is a quick presentation about the current state of the project. Again, there is not much change in the sense of the way we do things. So was a perfect presentation for that. What was interesting was once I started with process the data, classify the data, over Twitter, I was interacting with the science team and what we call it the super user group. Was one of the first citizen science project, and here where things get interesting regarding how how my journey with NASA citizen science and all I have achieved so far came to play. Because A couple of months after I started to classify data for the project, I was interacting with Mark, that was in charge of the Twitter account in that moment, regarding how much classification we were doing, interesting things we were finding. I truly didn't understand pretty much anything because all the tools were new for me. I was learning astronomy on the go, basically, because this was I started to study astronomy in university also, but the things we learning in the project were completely different that it was in the university. So a bit later, they decided to start the experiment to create a super user group. And this detective was pretty much one of the first to do it, or at least in the scale we do it, I think. I joined it in April 23, 2014. Sometimes that passes after that. And what we started getting involved to, we started getting involved with analyzing the internal data of the project, searching targets for observer runs. We started to do some video calls, not so regularly in 2014, but even more and more regularly in 2015. We do once per week since that time until now. In my case, I unofficially ended becoming the official archivist of the project in that regard. I record every call we have, so people that is unable to join live because time difference, usually because we have super users from all around the globe, so they able to keep they watch the video later. And it started a wonderful trip for me to learning how to use the tools for data analysis, getting to know the science team, making a local contact with the observatory here in Cordoba to gather data for one of the papers that, funny enough, is still not published because what were thinking was going to be a relative quick paper and then taking years. So hopefully this year is going to be the year for that paper. Um, is a bit a quick capture regarding that. This is my one capture of all the calls I keep record for the different projects I am in. Well, I participate. Here you see in the site the webcams that are on when we a random capture of one of those calls. We were analyzing a subject that other user was asking about because yeah, we usually find things that need more eyes, and if you can do it live, it's better. So we often do that in our calls. So this is a huge part of my experience with citizen science. Be able to directly interact with the other users and the science team. Here is Steven below my camera in the image. Um, all those interaction, Edmund Landy, for example, me traveling to a telescope in my country is at least 12, between 12 and 15 hours of driving, depending on how you do that, from my city to where the telescope is. I traveled there 3 times to take data for the project. Again, hopefully that particular paper is going to be published this year. The hope. So this detective opened for me a lot of doors in the sense I was able to know, for example, Luciano Garcia was in that moment working in the Cordoba Observatory. A contact was going to be impossible for me if not were by for Mark making contact with observatory, and well, I going there making the connections. Oh, sorry. And of course, this detective has resulted in several papers. I think I am more or less co-author in every these detective papers, except one where only the this detective collaboration is mentioned, let's say. But has been a wonderful discovery journey in that sense because we discover new type of objects. We learn how to do data analysis in a lot of cases for these objects. We even in one moment, I don't remember, see, yes, this paper, we even interact directly with the raw data from one of the telescopes to see if we are able to determine the contamination. And we were able to do it. So me, along other super users, under the supervision of the science team, of course, we were directly manipulating the raw data of that telescope for that paper. So it's been a wonderful journey of discovery, making connections, because, for example, I even ended in a book or TV interview. I completely forget to include that since it's something relatively old by now. But I ended one picture of me in Casleo and then in a book. You want to Google, that is the book. Speaking about citizen science, this detective was mentioned there. I landed there with my nation traveling to telescope and so far. Since there, I have participated also in several events led by NASA. NASA Science Live was one. NASA Citizen Science Leader Series was other. All this is available online, so you can track it down. So it's very hard to summarize in a few minutes, let's say. I think Sumit is going to speak regarding how a student can leverage opportunity with citizen science. It's very hard to summarize what you can do with these projects, but it's also important to mention that it's also going to depend of the science team behind those projects. And that was the reason, for example, about this series. NASA was the hosting a series of events so other scientists can learn about the projects that are currently in Universe and other platforms like C-Starter. Uh, so more projects can join the citizen science way, how to construct communities, how to construct projects where people can participate and feel that they are actually contributing. That was one of the, let's say, limitations about these old projects. The possibilities of interacting with the science team were quite limited in that time. So that is my journey with this detective. I can spend eons speaking about this detective. I will recommend, for example, if you are interested a bit more in my story with the project, you can go to this detective page, and from there you can find our blog and my videos. So I don't deal too much time with this, so we can speak a bit more. Also, I'm going to I think share because it was easy to just share this with you. Very important thing about my experience with citizen science, and well, thanks to Mark Kochner was the initial spearhead, let's call it, that started the citizen science movement in NASA, pretty much. I remember always our first calls where he was talking how in NASA, let's say the powers to be in NASA, the make people making the decisions was not entirely sure what all this about citizen science, what we were able to do with that, what problems could emerge from that, etc., etc. So Mark was kind of a trailblazer in that regard. And when this detective started to pick up some traction, well, now he is currently the citizen science head officers uh, for citizen science in NASA. So things are changed quite a bit from from 2014 to now. It's crazy to think in only 9 years, but yeah, things can change quite a bit in almost a decade. Steven was The second science team member I think I started to develop a relation with, he is currently the principal investigator for this detective. Once Mark pays the torch, because Mark, we need to pretty much clone it in this moment. So overtaxed that Mark is. He cannot do literally cannot do more things in this moment. And for example, in other projects I want to mention, here are Citizen Science. Katarina is one of the oldest super users in this detective that is also part of several other projects. He's a huge group of citizen scientists that end up developing important tools. For example, Dan end up developing a very important tool that we use for one of the projects that is recognized, officially recognized as a tool for the astronomy community now. And an important thing I want to show in this different, just showing the about section of a few projects where I am, is the huge array of scientists I was able to interact thanks to Mark, that led me to know these other people and led me to participate in these other projects. Uh, Mark, the first project that he kind of spun up after this detective was Backyard War Planet 9, the other project that is also running, currently running. You can see me here, right? Hello. With amazing scientists like Jackie Flaher, that you may have heard from her because he's quite active in social networks and events. So maybe you have seen from her a bit before. Adam, uh, is David over here? Yeah, David Kirkpatrick is here. Susan, that is also in this detective. A lot of this science team cross over from one project to another in several occasions. Jonathan Gagne, amazing scientist that I was able to know only by participating in this project. I always like to tell everything is thanks to Mark, because Mark started it all. So those are the projects. I leave it Backyard War by the end. Backyard War was the first, since Mark wanted to find even more things using the data from this detective, but not from this detective itself, from WISE. In this detective, we use the WISE data for our research. He wanted to use even more of the WISE data to find even more things. And this project basically searched for brown dwarf, and if we have lucky Sunday, maybe to find the elusive planet 9 that could be lurking in our solar system. That was the reason the project was initially called Backyard Wars, because we were thinking in things like brown dwarf, but the idea was to find things even more close by, like Planet 9. They didn't find Planet 9 so far. That has proven to be quite hard, more hard than we think. But the project has developed an amazing amount of tools and discoveries related to brown dwarf that are very important in their own way to understand how a solar system develops, how a star develops, and so on. Again, I stopped to speak about the science behind every project. We are going to be here until my 2 p.m. probably. Other of the projects that Mark helped to start up, and it's a funny case. I have two cases that are funny because they are opposite in how they are developed currently. Other project was Planet Patrol. Again, when they mention exoplanet, that's right in my alley. So I jumping into Planet Patrol. Planet Patrol in this moment don't have public data to analyze. If you go to Universe, you are going to find the page, but there is nothing to do here because the science team behind the project, in this case, I'm going to show again, speaking about Veselin, decided to take a different approach And once we finish analyzing all the data that we were having here, we ended developing a different approach. And this project is currently working as a, let's say, closed door citizen science project, because we are developing our own tools to deal with data. It's just a preview. I'm not going to show what page is because it's kind of private. We ended developing our own tools with the core science team, Vesselin, and the super users that make the core of the group. Myself, I see. Oh, Danny. I see Danny in the chat. He's also part of the project. Hello, Danny. I was seeing you, but was didn't want to get distracted. Uh, and we are currently changing from exoplanets to also eclipsing binary stars. We are doing a bit of everything we start in this moment, but we are doing in a private way. Let's say in that way. You can join. You can join the project, but there is nothing in the public side. We are all working in a, let's say, closed door manner, because we decided that we want to develop on our tools, not be constrained by Zoo Universe. Um, we are generating a bunch of data products, and once those are ready, maybe we are going to kick up a new citizen science project in Zoo Universe with that. But for the moment, we are there. And the opposite of that is Burst Chasers, another project that Danny is also part of. A recurrent thing in the projects are, you are going to see, if you get involved in, you are going to see a lot of repetitive people, not only in the science team, in the professional astronomer, let's call, because like Mark say, everybody participating in the project is part of the science team. But you are going to see quite a name repeating across all the projects, because it's like it's like a gravitational pull. Once you are inside one of the project, the opportunity to be in another present, and maybe you also participate in that one, and one things lead to another, and you end up participating in several projects at the same time. I am not participating in more things because I don't. Wish to be able to dedicate all my free time to this, but I do what I can. And Burst Chaser is uh, making the opposite move to Planet Patrol, because we are getting ready to launch the beta site, or the beta version of the project in Universe. Once we finish making some tweaks to the review process, to a few things we have to change. Once Universe review your project, and okay, you have to deal with this, so the project can work better, and you can go. We started as a closed doors project. We did a huge data analysis of gamma ray bursts uh, using Google Spreadsheet. Even you find funny that we use also in this detective, by the way. Once we finish that, we ended having our conclusion. Okay, we can do this and this, or we can do the frontiers other way. That we started to create the idea for the public project in Zoo Universe. So it's kind of Planet Patrol moved from public to a closed door project. Burst Jackson is moving from a closed door project to the Zoo Universe public project. So all different experience, all quite interesting. And I think, yeah, you Google for the project, you are going to able to find a purchaser. Of course, there is anything to do in the project right in this moment, because we are putting things together to launch the beta, but you can start to see a bit of what have already prepared to launch. So, trying to do a bit of a summary. Basically, my has been a decade. I'm going to run out to a decade because I was trying to do, like I was mentioning, we started at home. As investigator, before 2014, I was already trying to get more directly involved, even if I launched off the ground with 2014 with this detective. But it's been a crazy decade I will say, because while initially started with my personal curiosity to find a way to contribute with science, uh, um, contribute to science, learn to how science was done, how all the spacecraft worked, how the data was taken, what kind of data, etc., was and then creating for me a, let's say, direct connection with NASA, thanks to Mark, be able to participate in events, in travels, even with local groups. I will quickly mention my local groups here in Cordoba. That sadly, all that was kind of cut with the pandemic. After the pandemic, the current economic and political crisis that Argentina is currently in kind of disrupted all the I was doing with the local groups, sadly. But also my work with the local groups here in Cordoba was also thanks to the citizen science project, thanks to this detective, because they learned about what I doing, so I was able to do a series of course really quickly. I was able to participate in additional travels to the north of my country to uh, install new telescope and that kind of things. Again, sadly, was cut short by the pandemic. And it's really hard to summarize. But I think I will not be here is not worth by citizen science at what NASA has enabled thanks to this detective and all the movement that what that has created. Because if an small institution run a project, is fine, is perfect. You are going to have your science done, but having a big institution, a big name like NASA behind you, always gains you more traction. Um, some people maybe can find that a bit annoyance, but it's a bit a sad truth about life. You sometimes need a big name so you are able to do to reach more people. In this case of this detective, a huge part of the success the project was able to reach was because it comes with NASA backing, in the sense of uh, making publicity, outreach, and so on and so on. And that has enabled to other citizen science projects to develop the citizen movement as a whole to reach new levels. Um, keep me this kind of session. Oh, okay. I know, it's a question for me. Sorry, distracted by the chat. So yeah, I don't know how we are doing with time because I lost track of time, literally. I don't know if people want to do me some questions. We want to move to Sumit. Feel free to ask anything you want. I know there is a bit of lag with the chat, so I have the screen in my second monitor.
Hugo, I have a question for you.
Yeah. Who is asking? Sorry, because
I
since I
am
have been
Sumit.
sharing. Hello.
Hugo, you talked about Planet Petrol as the citizen science project. So I would like you to discuss more about how do we join that project, because I don't see that on Zooniverse at all. And as you said, it's not there on Zooniverse as of now. So how do we join it? And the tool looks really interesting. So if you can give a slightly more detailed intro on what this tool does, and yeah, if you can.
You mean this page?
Yes, this one.
Okay. Regarding Planet Patrol, I will say probably the first thing you have to do to be able to join Planet Patrol. Planet Patrol is not a project for. Is not going to be good for your first citizen science project if you don't have experience being super using in another. So I will recommend, for example, trying I don't know to join this detective or backyard wars, for example, so you get a bit more your bearings regarding. Uh, I can screen share, so I don't think people are going to mind. So you learn how to use things like Simbat, Bezier. All these I'm going to just leave this page here. Simbat, Bezier, all these tools that maybe people are going to say, what the hell is this? And I was pretty much in the same position when I started with this detective. I didn't understand anything about about any of this. So I would recommend to start with the projects that have open super user group, like this detective backyard wars. I think they are the easiest one. Uh, of course, there are more projects like Planet Hunter Test, for example. I'm going to mention I don't participate in that one because I don't have time, but there are members from this detective that are there, Lisa, Milton, that are users that you are going to find in the team page of this detective that I participate in those others. Once you get your bearings in these ones, you can, for example, contact me. Could be the easiest way to enter Planet Patrol. So I can you present it with best-selling and maybe uh, in there introduce you in the project. In your case, Sumit, you participate in this detective, you participate in other projects, so you don't need to do all that introductory work. But for maybe people that have never participated, I would recommend it that way. If you want to participate, Sumit, send me an email and I can put you in contact with Besselin and yeah, we can do that. In Boss Chase was similar in that regard, so only that Boss Chase is preparing to launch publicly. So yeah, for Planet Patrol, I would recommend to do that for people with no experience and with people with experience like you submit. Well, Soban is already part, but you have done your preparation work already. Try to read if there is something in the chat. No, I don't see anything. Any other question? I hope that my talk makes some sense. It's very hard to compress almost 10 years of experience. Oh, there is something in the chat. Let me. What is the chat when you are screen sharing? Give me a sec. Oh, there you go. The only annoying thing is when you lose track or your. Oh, there you go. Let me see the chat. I'm going to put this in other screen so I can read it. There you go. Dissertation. Okay. I'm going to read the chat. Sorry, didn't notice before, but when you are screen sharing, you kind of lost track of half of the things. Uh, okay, I will start from the first one. Peter Dasgupta. Sorry, I massacred any name. To be a citizen science, you do we need any kind of training? Well, was kind of related what Sumit asked and I was answering. You kind of need or not, depending on how much you want to end up getting involved. How can I say? One thing is, for example, you only are going to classify data. Let me go to this detective page. Maybe if you only want to classify data, you only need to learn a bit. For example, read the about page, read the FAQ. In Universe, we have the field guides. Read the field guides. and maybe learning a bit about the project, what the project does, and how to classify the data is enough for you. With just a bit of training and reading, you are going to be good to go. That same goal for pretty much every project in Universe, because you can follow the same steps, learn about the project interested you, read the FAQ, read the tutorial, see the videos, what they have, see the field guides, and that is one level. If you want to go even deeper, like I did in back in the day, Sumit clearly have, Soban, Danny, that is also present in the call, maybe you are going to need to learn a bit more about, for example, these tools I was mentioning. But in pretty much every project, if there is a super user group, you are going to find resource about how to start learning all of this. And what was vital for me, if you can join an active user group like this detective backyard wars when we have regular calls, asking question, interacting is going to help you immensely to learn even more and more. And the sky and the sky is the limit. Astronomical joke there, because how much you are going to be able to learn is going to depend on you, basically, and how big level of, how high level of training you are going to reach, basically. Uh, Let me see. Resuma. Can anyone estimate the mass accretion rate from? Oh, okay. X-ray binaries. That is way behind my expertise, because in this detective we deal with infrared excess, and mass accretion is something quite hard to talk about in the fly. So yeah, not exactly mine area, especially X-ray. I think I never have worked with X-ray. No, in any of the projects. So sorry. And AGNs in the first iteration of this detective, we were actively avoiding AGNs. So if I learned anything about AGN was how to avoid them in the WISE data. So didn't learn anything much else about AGNs as how they look and how to avoid it in your data. David Clark. Well, I think Sumit is going to also speak about that. So I will only say regarding how citizen science can help with the career in astronomy. Um, Depending on your country or where you are, it's going to help you develop a relation with science, with people working in science, with institutions. It's going to give you a lot of tools that maybe are going to be more easier to deal with the university in some aspects. But I will not mention too much. I say that because Sumit is going to talk about how students can use it in science to leverage. So, oh, question from the YouTube chat. Thank you, because I am unable to follow two chats at the same time. Why citizen science is so important nowadays? That is another hard one. And I would recommend to, for example, search for the citizen science leaders that NASA was hosting. Um, well, to know debate even more, I can send data for people organizing the talk where all those resources are. But one of the bigger things regarding citizen science and why we need is in the case of astronomy, for example, there is just not enough astronomers in the world to analyze all the astronomical data that is generated every day. We have, for example, to mention the latest, we have James Webb into space. We have the Rubin telescope that is not so far away to start working. We have huge telescope like Pan-STAR working. The amount of data that is generated daily, sorry, I am looking that way because I put the chat there. Sorry, the camera here. The amount of data that is generated daily is impossible to get analyzed by small science teams in universities or in the observatories. So the first thing that citizen science can do is help with that, because there is just no way. For example, if you want to detect NEOs, NEOs are near Earth asteroids that are orbiting near Earth, and some of those can be dangerous. There is no way for universities or professional observatories to scan all the sky and analyze all the data in a timely manner to, okay, we have an asteroid that could be a danger. If you leave that task only professional teams, they're probably not going to see it until it's quite late. Same goes for events that are transitory, like supernovas. You need to pick up the event as soon as you see it to be able to analyze. Uh, Again, if only professional observatories are dedicated to do that, you are going to miss pretty much, I don't know, 90% of the events in the sky, because you need a lot of eyes in the data to be able to catch that data fresh so you can do a follow up. And same goes for other disciplines like astronomy. For example, in the case of climate change, there are a lot of work that you need people in the field in huge areas and in different countries, even better. So a professional only team is going to have always a limited scope. So citizen science can help there to pull data from all over the world. Um, and yes, I think citizen science is going to be even more important with each passing day, because we are going to have more and more and more data to deal with. There is going to be no other practical way to deal with, because yes, you can maybe change thinking and machine learning, artificial intelligence, sorry, and all that, but that is very limited. So in this moment, because there is, for example, you need pattern seeking recognition. Uh, in artificial intelligence and machine learning is quite far away to be able to match the human brain regarding how to find patterns and that other thing. So we can only rely in computers and automated scripts and so on into a limited scope, because computer only can do so far. After that, you need the human mind to be able to interpret things, find patterns, find unusual things that break a pattern and such. So again, I don't want to use more time because Sumit has to give his talk. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Okay. There you go. Okay. We need a lot more time to keep talking and talking. So again, I hope that my talk makes sense. I hope my English was understandable. And thank you again for having me. I will keep participating in this one if we keep doing this.
Thank you, Hugo, for this presentation. It was lovely hearing to your experience. So now
Thank
I
you.
would request Sumit to start out with his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Aritra, and thank you, Hugo, for the lovely talk. Now, before I start, the $1,000,000 question for any virtual meeting: am I audible and visible?
Yeah, you're both audible and visible.
Okay, all right. We will also start my presentation before I start. So first of all, Hello, Danny. I just noticed your ping on the YouTube comments. So, hi, it's nice to see you. So let me start with the screen share. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. All right. So, as one of the questions in the last talk was, how do we use citizen science in getting or building a career in astronomy? Is something that I would be talking. So before I go there, it's very important to understand who am I to talk about these things. To give you a short synopsis, I completed my undergrad studies in 2017, and then there was a year of failure, as I say, because I applied to about 35 universities across the world, and I got rejected in all of them. The two common reasons that I got rejected was very simple. One was I did not have much academic experience, and second, I had no research experience. That was very, very important. So, if anybody there who's trying to get a career in astronomy or in astrophysics, both of them these days are used interchangeably with one another, though they are very different fields. In either of these cases, one thing that is very, very important is to build your career, build your profile as a research student rather than someone who has been scoring very high marks. Of course, marks is very important when you go for an interview, but then even better than that would be your research experience and whether or not you published papers during your experience there. So that is exactly where I came across citizen science, because in India, to be very, very particular, you do not get much opportunity to work with scientists, especially the ones from IITs and the one from IISCs, who are on the forefront of academic research in our country. So the obvious thing to do would be to look outside, and that is exactly when I started looking. It was in 2018 when I started looking for citizen science projects, and I started with the entire thing of what is citizen science, who can be a citizen scientist, and how you use a citizen science as a tool to build your academic resume. So my talk would be in two parts. The first part is when we will slightly explore into a greater detail on what is citizen science, and I will show you a couple of projects on Zooniverse that part of, and I am still a part of a few of them. We will do some activities together, and then in the second part of my talk, I will focus on how do you use this citizen science experience and build your resume, build your academic CV, so that you get accepted to your preferred colleges that you apply to. So we start with a very important question, and I think one of the participants asked this question on the YouTube channel. He or she, I don't remember the gender, asked this very important question: what is citizen science? Now, before I answer what is citizen science, I need all of you to take out your phones. You can scan this QR code with your scanner and give me a one word that you think it's all about citizen science. So I know most of you are citizen scientists here. And even if you are not, what do you think? What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about citizen science? I'll give you approximately 1 minute, and then depending on the answers, I will go ahead with my talk. In case you are unable to scan the QR code, you can also visit this site, menti.com, MENTI, and then I'll stop sharing and and I will share this.
Oh, yeah, it's working for me. I was since let clear one doubt I have in my mind. With which project, with citizen science project, you started?
I started with Stardust at Home.
Ah, also that one. Okay. And in Universe, you joined the first this detective, or you started with another?
Come again, Hugo? I missed your point.
In Universe, is this detective was your first one, or you started with another? Because I was trying to remember, and
that was my first one, Hugo. Coming to advanced user.
Oh, okay. So my interaction with you, as Mal mentioned about this detective, for example, if you want to join, you have to send an email to an address that is in the page, And usually it's
Yep.
it's my fault if I delay to answer those emails. Who answered that email? So my first interaction with Sumit was when he wanted to enter this detective super user group. So nice side story there.
Okay, my bad. I stopped sharing my screen. Google Meet works wonders sometimes. So I'll give you another minute to scan this QR code and get your answers before I go ahead and we see at the results of what do you think are, what is a citizen science? What is citizen science to you? So in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, I can take up these, or maybe you can ping your questions and I can take them up later. Okay, we can look at. Okay, so there are two responses that I see. The first is help the real scientist, and the second is science with citizen. And I think both of them are absolutely correct. To give you a brief of what citizen science is, citizen science is all about using people who are not in academia, who are not scientists, and use their intellect, use their intelligence in solving real world scientific problems. Now, why citizen science very important in astronomy? As Hugo was saying sometimes back, in astronomy, the amount of data generated with all these telescopes out there, James Webb Space Telescope, the Large Synoptic Sky Survey, the Gaia mission, we have the WISE mission, we have the Kepler mission, and we have a number of these missions that are already running, and they generate TBs and PBs of data every night. And we do not have sufficient manpower, sufficient resources to analyze each and every object that these telescopes report. So that is exactly where we need citizen scientists. The idea is we have billions of people on this planet, and if we can outsource most of these to people who are passionate about science, they can make a huge difference and produce extremely well-studied results in terms of science, in terms of astronomy, in terms of many other sciences that we can think of. Now, the next billion-dollar question that I usually get asked is, who can be a citizen scientist? And again, before I give you the answer to this, please scan this QR code, and I can also show you the Menti code for this. And so please go ahead, and we'll give you one more minute to see who can be a citizen scientist, and then we can proceed with the rest of the talk.
Okay, now I understand better what to do with this. Make fun of me if you want, but I am a bit behind with some things like this fancy thing like QR code. I am an old school computer guy, so
No worries, Hugo, we can learn together. All right, do we have any? Oh, wow, that's nice questions. We are having responses. I will wait for 30 more seconds. And let's see. We have 3 responses. Anybody with basic science, anybody and anyone, and the answer is absolutely correct. You do not need to be a science major. You do not have to be an engineer. You do not have to be a PhD holder to do citizen scientist. You can be anybody. You can be as young as 5-year-olds. I think I came across a paper where the father-son duo, and the son was, I think, was 7 years old, who published one of the papers with one of the citizen science projects. So you can be as young as 7 years old, and you can be as old as 70 years old. Nobody is stopping you from doing science. So anybody, and here in this room, I see about 12 people, and I don't know how many of them are on YouTube. So all of you are well eligible to be a citizen scientist. Now, going ahead, these are some of the examples of citizen science projects that I was a part of in the past to speak with. Disk Detective, Hugo already mentioned in great detail of what Disk Detective is. Planet Hunters test, which is currently inactive because Dr. Eisner Nora, who was the PI for this project, she recently got her PhD and she moved on to a different project. So this project is now inactive for the time being. And we have the Backyard Worlds Planet 9, which is another very interesting project I found on this universe. And we will go through one of all of these three. We'll do one example of these three to show you how easy it can be for anybody to become a citizen scientist. So all that you have to do is visit this website. I will ping you the website in case you are not aware of. universe.org, if I'm not wrong. And when you go there, you create your profile. You start with these projects that you can, and one of these projects is the Planet Hunters test. And as you can see, the workflow is already finished, so we do not have new objects to come up, but still I can go ahead and I can show you a couple of examples. So I can show you one example. So in this example, all that you have to do is select a transit, and if you go to the tutorial section of it, it shows what a transit exactly looks like.
Sumit, you are not showing that. You are only showing the example. There you go.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Hugo, for pointing out this. I completely
No problem.
So if you go to the tutorial part of this, the tutorial part shows you what a transit is all about. And it shows that this thing, that goes lower than the light curve of the star is what a tutorial is, it's what a transit is. And in this one, I do not see any transit. And I am in the training mode. So if you're in the training mode, if you make a mistake, they show you the problem with the thing. So and even if this one, we do not see any transit. I'm just thinking whether we get anything. It's a bad luck. We do not have many examples. I'll see one more.
Because it's marked like a workflow is finished. So maybe, there you go. You
there we have
cranky to load more examples.
So here is one transit that I see. Here is another transit. And maybe to some of you, this might be a transit. And then once you select the transit, you click on done, and you just classified one of the things. We missed one transit there. It shows it one transit, and you can keep classifying the things. Similarly, we have the Disk Detective project, where you see all of these images from different surveys. We see the sky mapper. You can see and go on this animation, which shows you the different variation of the somehow. Okay. So it just shows you different. It just shows you a different images of the same object under different projects, and all I have to do is you have to select one or more of these objects here in this tab right now. So if I see there, the object moves off the crosshairs in only 2 mass images. Well, let's see whether it's here is the crosshair and the object moves out of the 2 mass images. Yes, to some extent.
Sorry,
yes.
Sumit. You are showing Planet Hunter still.
Okay, I'm okay, this is really weird. Thank you, Hugo, for pointing this out. This detective, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to. Okay, all right. So that's okay. So I'll reiterate everything that I just said. This is this detective that we are a part of right now. And if you keep on the player menu, you see the same object being shown to you from different surveys. Unwise is one of the wide infrared survey explorer. The sky mapper is another similar survey that we have. And these images are taken from different surveys. And the question is, you have to select which of these applies to this object. So for example, off the crosshair in only 2 mass images, yes, it does. If you see it carefully, in the 2 mass images, the object is slightly outside this crosshair. The object moves off the crosshair in 2 or more images. I think, yes, it does move out of this. So it goes here. The object is not round. It's not true. The object is extended. No, it's not extended. 2 or more images show multiple objects. No, we don't see multiple objects there. And 2 or more objects show between the outer and the inner circles. Well, we don't have any of these things. So for these objects, these 2 apply. You select these 2 and click on done. So when you do done, You have successfully classified one object in this detective project, and you are okay to move to another project. Another object, you do the same thing. You click on this play button. It shows you the object. Select these things, and you are all set for your project. The last example that I would like to show, and this time I
Sumit,
will.
Sumit, before you move on, one thing you can point out for people wanting to participate more, that when you are finished with that object, instead of clicking just done, show the button on the side, you can click
Yeah,
the other one that is going to direct you to the forums that every project has, where you can ask questions about that object. And okay, I found this. What is this? This is interesting, and you can interact with a lot of the science team in that way initially using the forums.
yes. Thank you, Hugo, for pointing that out. Yes, Hugo correctly showed. Okay, let's just do this one example there. This object slightly moves out of the 2 mass images, and we don't see anything else for this. So all that I have to do is I have to do done and talk. So when you do a done and talk, it shows you this image, and it shows you every comment that every user has posted. So one of the comments I see W3XS, which is slightly technical. I'm not going into the detail of what does this mean, but these are the sort of images, these are sort of comments that you can see, and this is exactly the place where you learn more about these objects. And finally, we move to the last example that I intend to show you. And this time I will not forget to share this screen. This is Backyard Worlds Planet 9. And if you see, this is how this things looks like. And if you click on play, all that you have to do is you have to either select a mover. You see an object which is moving across the screen, or you can see a dipole which moves back and forth. So if you see this, this is how it looks like. And I don't see any mover, I don't see any dipoles. I just simply click on done and talk, or I can click on done. But if you do see a mover or a dipole, you can use the marking tool, and you can mark the objects. For example, if I want to mark this object, I can click on this, it marks. And similarly, I mark this on all of the images there. And with this, and once you do this, you can either click on done and talk, or you can click on done. I'm not submitting this because I know this is not a dipole or a mover, so I will not spoil this image. So if this is, once you click on done or done and talk, this image is submitted for further review to the PIs and the researchers. And this way you go ahead and you complete another project of your choice. And similar projects exist. There are many tons of them on Zooniverse platform. I can show you. Go to projects, and once you go to projects, you have different disciplines out there, and there are plenty of examples. We have supernovae, we have galaxies, we have the Galaxy Zoo. This is the first project on Zooniverse. We have the Catalina Sky Survey. A lot of things that you can explore, and all of these follow the same workspace. You go there, you get yourself trained if you want to. I can go back, get yourself trained on the tutorial. You can select the field guide to understand better on what we are working with, and you can further go ahead and explore things as much as you can going ahead. So citizen science is real science, and if anybody has any doubts, you can go to any of these projects. I am going to this detective, that is because I am very active on this detective. So you can go to about, you can go to the results section, and in this results you have all the papers that this detective has produced, and all of
You are
these
not
papers.
showing that to me. Your
Oh.
your engineering is stuck in projects. There you go.
I don't know what is going wrong with the project.
I don't know what kind of bug you are suffering there, but it is a bit weird.
But if you go to the results section, and you just see the number of papers that this detective has produced, and this is this detective 1.0, as Hugo was saying, which is the first project that this detective was a part of. And in this detective collaboration, you see a lot of papers being produced, and thanks to citizen science, these papers are accepted as well published papers now. So you can go ahead, and for all of these projects, you have similar things. You can go on Planet Hunters, and you can go on Planet Hunters, and you can go on results. And in these results, you can see all of the publications, that all of the objects that has been discovered as exoplanets. And all of these are thanks to citizen scientists. these are all now accepted as exoplanets, and believe me or not, these are mostly done by citizen scientists uh, throughout the project. So this is
Yeah.
where I end up with my first part of the talk about what is citizen science and how do you participate in citizen science. And I'll now wait for a few minutes for questions if you have any. I am not monitoring the YouTube channel because I do not have a spare laptop. So if any questions on the YouTube channel, please forward it to me. Or you can also unmute yourself and you can ask me questions directly. I do not mind. So let's wait for
Yeah,
a minute or two.
there isn't anything new in the YouTube channel, so yeah, we can keep talking for hours regarding this and all the things you can do. So I can even show my Orchid profile. That is a way you can register all the papers you are participating, and it is also very nice thing to do if you are thinking and following a career. And showing every paper and appear as a co-author. We can spend hours with this. So
Okay. Uh, yes, Hugo, absolutely correct. Do we have questions? I don't see any questions on the chat. Do we have
no, I
questions
don't
on
see.
YouTube?
No, in YouTube, no.
All right.
There is
All right.
anything in YouTube.
So okay. So I will now move on to the next part of the talk, which is how do you use citizen science to progress in your astronomy career? I think that was one of the questions on the chat. So
Yeah.
before I go with the question, there's one disclaimer that I have to make, and the disclaimer is I am going for a PhD program, so I'll be mostly talking about PhD programs. Masters, I do not have much knowledge of it. So for masters, I would recommend you to reach out to the universities and be specific with them, because PhD programs come with a stipend, with a fellowship. Masters programs usually don't come with a fellowship, so that is something that you have to keep in mind. So for the PhD programs, I have that the one that I have been applying for the last 1 year is that there are two kinds of process that exist in the academic world. One are the US universities specifically, and the other are the non-US universities, including the universities in India. The US universities, usually you apply to departments and they have very strict deadlines. They have very strict process of how they select students to their PhD programs. Whereas for the non-US universities, you apply to professors, with a few exceptions, of course. With Oxford and Cambridge, for example, they have a very different process. In India, we have a very different process. You have to clear the exams first before you go ahead and start your applications. So, with a few of these exceptions, most of these can be attributed to either US universities or non-US universities. Now, why I'm showing you this is because when you apply to any of these departments, assuming that you clear the entrance exam in India, the first thing that the departments look at is going to be your resume, is going to be your CV. And along with this application, along with your CV goes an application packet. Now, application packet consists of a number of documents, and this is the list of the application packet that goes on. We have the CV, we have the cover letter. The cover letter tells you, or it tells the department who you are, what is your research experience, what is it that you are interested in, and what is it that you are bringing to the table as a PhD student. A research experience, usually it is not required by the US universities, it is mainly required by European universities and in the UK, where you apply to professors and not to department, where you talk about your research experience. This is something that where your citizen science experience will come handy. You have the statement of purpose or motivation letter, as it in the name suggests, what motivated you to go ahead and take up that PhD program or the master's program. You have to submit an academic essay, which is a new trend that is getting traction in the last 2 years or so, where you have to write 1,000 or 2,000 worded essay on some of the topics in astronomy. I remember I wrote an essay to Cambridge, highlighting the importance of artificial intelligence in the field of astronomy, which I'll come back to in a minute. You also include a diversity statement, wherein you talk about how you are bringing a diversity to the to the institution or to the department that you are applying, and finally, your letters of recommendations. Now, where in all of these does your citizen science profile fits? And to answer this one, the main three things that you see as a citizen science fits is number one, as research experience, as I already mentioned. It helps you improve your academic CV or cover letter. As Hugo was saying, having the NASA citizen science stamp on your back helps a lot in your academic CV. When departments read you are a NASA-backed citizen scientist and you have been working on citizen science projects, uh, they you get additional bonus points when they review your application. And finally, supplementing your citizen science experience is something that is very subjective, something that I did differently than what Hugo might have done when he was doing his citizen science projects. So we'll go to these one by one in a minute. So how do you complement yourself, or how do you use your citizen science experience as research experience? And this is where I show you one of the examples from this detective. So if I go to this detective, and in this detective you go to classify, and in this classify, of course, this is the classification page that you see. And this is something that you generally people do, but what stands out or what makes you stand out as a citizen science is you go to this small eye, and in this eye you see there are urls, which is the IRSA url. IRSA is another. I'll just open and show it to you. You go to Simbad and you go to Vizier. Vizier is one of the databases for these.
On the page I was mentioning, yeah.
Yes, we don't
Didn't want
think.
to overload people with so much info.
Yeah, I'm just showing the examples there. You can
Yeah.
see these tabs opening up. The Vizier is another database for different objects. IRSA is another thing which shows you the same object in different, for example, the DSS, the two mass, the all wise images, and so on. So this is where you explore more about the object, you learn more about the object, and this is where you improve on your research experience. And this is exactly what goes into your research profile. You can also always mention, I have been working with DSS projects where I have been classifying objects with the in the DSS survey, or you can go and say, I have worked with Vizier as the. Okay, for some reason it's not loading. I'll reload this tab. So you can always say I have been working with Vizier
You
as
are
a
still showing
database.
IRSA.
Oh, I don't know what. Okay, Vizier is not responding, so that's okay. That's fine.
Busy can get cranky
Yeah.
Sunday, yeah.
So this is how you supplement your research experience. Also, being a part of the advanced user group helps in understanding what you are looking at. Currently, I cannot give you much information about it because if I go deep into this, we will spend the entire evening just looking into one object and not
Indeed.
get into much of the details. The second thing is how to improve your academic CV and cover letter. Well, in one of the projects that is about to come online, burst chasers, that Hugo was talking about in a few sometimes back. We had one poster that was presented in the AS annual meeting this year, I believe, where we showcased our work, our 1 year of work, of how a couple of citizen scientists were able to classify bursts from the BATSI survey, and we showed them as results to the AS meetings. And that goes into an academic letter. You say, okay, I was a part of the team that presented on the American Astronomical Society's project, and I remember Danny was the one who was leading the effort from their side. So you become a part of that experience as well, which goes into your cover letter and which goes into your academic CV. Now, these 2 points are very, very subjective, so I'm not going into very much detail of this. If you have questions on this topic, on very specific questions on how to use research experience and how to improve your academic CV, we can talk more about it in the question and answer round. But for the time being, the one thing that I would like to really share with all of you is how do you supplement your citizen science experience with the projects that we have already shown there. So by supplementing your citizen science experience, what I mean is what we call the data-driven science or data-driven astronomy. And in this thing, this is something that I have done on my own, completely on my own. And of course, my master's thesis is completely based on these three areas of citizen science. And this is something that I will show you one example each. And if you are interested, we can talk about this in detail. So first of all, we talk about the astronomical sequel. I think most of the people who are attending the call today, they know what a SQL is. A SQL is a structured query language. We use SQL to query databases, and we have something called as ADQL, which is Astronomical Data Query Language, wherein we modify the SQL in order to make sure it works for astronomical purposes. And one of the examples that I can show you right away is the Gaia archive. Okay, am I sharing my screen?
No,
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 it is not.
currently no.
Okay. There's something wrong with my computer, so please. Okay. Am I sharing my screen now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right. So one example of the astronomical
archive.
data query language that I can show you is the Gaia archive. So before I go, can you see my Gaia archive page?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So let me just sign in. You can create your own profile free of cost. It does not take much time to create one profile, and you can go ahead. You can go on ADQL and you can run queries. One example of the query that I can show you is this one. Okay, so Gaia decided to hang, so that's okay. All right. Okay.
Well, doing things live has its own risks.
Sumit, actually, your screen share just stopped.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, no. That
Ah,
the
that was
problem is with my.
intentional.
It wasn't intentional. It just I don't know. Something is wrong with my computer. I don't
It's
know
like
what.
it's like your computer is refusing to properly refresh the screen when you are screen sharing. I don't know.
So
Something weird.
you can always write queries like these. This is something
Yeah.
that I wrote of my own to just explore how things work out. And if you are a bit skeptical about how do I know about the Gaia archive page, is where Vizier comes into picture. So if I go to Vizier, okay, it's still crashed, and I just lost my screen share once again. Okay. Yeah.
They remind me when Veselin, that is a leader from Planet Patrol, he also fight with his computer when he is screen sharing. So
So if you go to Vizier page like these, okay, it's loading the catalogs.
and seeing we are way too lot for people that was asking about training. Don't worry, you are not going to understand anything about this page when you start. Everybody started in the same spot. Don't worry. Have some patience, and you are going to learn what everything means. And after that, you are going to just Control F and search whatever you are looking for.
So very good. So Vizier has decided to fight with me today. So I'm okay. I cannot show you what exactly am I talking, but Gaia page is something that did I just lose my connection once again?
Use the screen sharing.
Okay.
You are using Google Chrome, right?
I am using Google Chrome. I don't know what is going wrong, but yes.
Google Chrome is having a lot of issue with RAM memory leaking. So we would recommend you try Firefox the next time you are doing a video call and see how it goes, because I think it's
Oh.
a fault of Chrome.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Thank you, Hugo. I will keep that in mind. So yes, the astronomical data query language is just these things. You can explore everything that you can. And for people who are statisticians, I work in the field of galaxies. So in the field of galaxies, you do a lot of statistical data analysis. And in statistical data analysis, this is very important. The first thing to query and get the data out of it is very important. And once you do this, you see the data something like this. I can show you the data, the query results. Okay. And, so the query results looks well, this is how the query results looks, and you can do all kind of a statistical data analysis. For example, you can compute how far these objects are by inversing the parallax, or you can find out many details on how objects interact with one another and how close these objects are. Depends on what questions you are trying to ask and what answers you are trying to get. So that is the first caveat of how you use these astronomical data query language to experience or to supplement your citizen science experience. One is Universe, where you get the basic synopsis, the tip of the iceberg. And the second is when you go yourself deep into the projects and see what exactly scientists are trying to figure out, and you do work with them. These things, that is very, very important, which is what gets you that PhD position that you have been looking for. Because there will be thousands of people with very similar background experience, with very similar scores, very similar marks, but what makes you very different is the ability for you to show and tell them that this is what I can do, but other students cannot. So this is one example of how you can do this. The second way that you can do is what I call the astronomical data analysis. And I have one example that I can show you, and this example is something that I have been working on Kaggle.com. So Kaggle.com is not a astronomical website, but it's a more of a machine learning website from Google, where you practice machine learning and data analytics. Surprisingly, it also has many astronomical data sets that you can go and search here in astronomical data sets. And one of the data sets that I have live on Kaggle.com is this Python notebook, which you can use for your I can share this Kaggle notebook with all of you. You can copy this Kaggle notebook and start using your astronomical data analysis with these basics, the entire thing. What the Hipparcos catalog is, what are the different terminologies that we use in astronomy, what do they mean, how do you visualize these things. Everything is there in detail on this Astronomy 101 page or 101 Python notebook that I created a year back. And this is one of the key highlights that was there on my resume, which made me stand out from the rest of the people who are applying for the same position in the astronomical department. This is one example of data analysis, astronomical data analysis using Python. The third, as Hugo was mentioning, is machine learning or AI in astronomy. And to supplement this experience, you have this plastic citizen science project, a plastic astronomical classification project. This is not active anymore, but you can always go ahead and improve on how you can use AI and machine learning in astronomical context, and you can always go ahead and start coding, start understanding what this plastic data set is all about. The plastic data set is nothing but the photometric LSST astronomical time series classification survey, which is LSST being one of the classic, what we call the transient astronomy, one of the classic telescopes using transient astronomy, or what we call time series astronomy. And in this time series astronomy, we have a lot of photometric data, and the job of this project is to build a AI-based system that will classify these images. Another aspect of citizen science project, we have one part of citizen science who classify these objects by looking into them. The other part of this is when we train computer models, and the computer models do it of their own and give us the same results. The other example of machine learning that I can show you, which is not a citizen science project, but is more of my research that I have been doing for the last 1 year. And here is something that I have been doing, what we call a galactic archaeology. And this is one of the applications of machine learning in astronomy, where this image that you see is it's data from about 1.3 billion stars from Gaia DR3, Gaia archive that I just showed you in this one of these data. And the one that I'm showing you is the result from this query about 4 million, some 405,000 data sets that we have. And what this colors show you is that these are the fraction of stars which do not belong to the Milky Way, but were part of a different, smaller galaxy, which have now collided with the Milky Way and are now a part of the Milky Way as such. So using this, we can know the past merging history of the Milky Way, and then we can reconstruct the entire evolutionary history of Milky Way and how Milky Way started and how it has evolved to the current state of this. So these are some of the applications that of machine learning, and one of the ways that you can supplement your citizen science experience. Citizen science in itself gives you a very gives you a platform on when you can start working on various science questions, but what you make out of it is completely up to you. And this is exactly how you do this, by supplementing a research experience, by learning how to query various databases that contain astronomical data sets. You can do astronomical data analysis, as I showed in one of the Hipparcos catalog, for example, and then you can obviously have your own machine learning expertise getting tracked in astronomy. So with this, I end the second part of my talk. I kept it short and sweet because I would like to have a more interactive kind of a thing than I speaking and nobody asking any questions. So now that I am complete with my presentation. If there are any questions, please go ahead and share that with me. We can have a discussion on them. Do we have? Okay, we don't
I
have
don't
any
see
questions.
anything in the YouTube side. So
Okay, so I remember there was a question sometimes back, which is not related to citizen science, but I do see that this is something that I think I can give the answers. And Sri Suman, are you there on the call? I think it's not there on the call, but the question was very interesting. The question was, can anyhow we estimate the mass accretion rate from this in X-ray binaries or AGNs? Uh, it's not a citizen science question, but I would anyhow go ahead and answer this question because this is something that I recently completed in my time domain course from my master's degree. So yes,
nice.
there are ways that you can estimate the mass accretion rate around the X-ray binaries and around active galactic nuclei. How do you do this is a bit scientific, bit theoretical, but the key to this idea is what we call the Eddington limit, the Eddington luminosity, and the Eddington mass limit. And using the Eddington mass limit and figuring out how close the AGN is to the Eddington mass limit, you can figure out the mass accretion rate. It's not straightforward. It's not very easy to do, but it is doable, and it has. We have few ways to do it, but the key idea there is Eddington's luminosity and Eddington mass, and using that Eddington mass and luminosity, you can estimate the mass accretion rate. So, any more questions? Anybody? If we not, then we are good to close this.
Yeah, we are a bit beyond the initial duration of the call. So, we have a question from Danny in the YouTube chat. Let me copy and paste it so I don't butcher the question from Danny. Danny says, "What would you recommend for education on a budget?"
That is a very subjective question.
Yeah.
So that depends on the country. Education on a budget is obviously a very big problem for most of the students. Luckily, I was able to get a scholarship, and mine was, I did not spend much on my undergrads and on my masters. But people who are on a budget crunch, the best way that I think could be done is by taking up distance learning. Distance learning can be distance learning can be a supplement to many of the people who could not pursue their education in the younger days. And I have come across many of my classmates at ARI, at Astrophysical Research Institute. They were in their mid 40s when they were doing their masters. So yes, distance learning is one of the answers for people who are on a budget crunch because it's cheaper, and you also do not have to forego your job, and you can complete your education along with the job. So that I hope, Danny, that answers your question. If not, we can always interact offline, and if you have any more questions, I'm happy to take them. Okay,
We see each
David.
other regularly with Danny. So
Yeah, we do meet with Danny with every Friday. So yeah, I have
Yeah,
a
you
question
have
from
another
David.
question in the chat.
Sumit, I have a
So
question
take
for
it.
you. How citizen science projects help you in your academics? Um, that's a very subjective question that depends on your field of research. For me, it helped a lot because my experience on this detective was on individual stars. And when you study individual stars, you get yourself familiarized with the terms such as parallax, the proper motions in declination, the proper motions in right ascension, the equatorial coordinate system, the RA deck, the radial velocities, and the proper motions. So these are some of the terms that is very, very important when you do galactic astronomy. Now, I am someone who is very interested in galactic astronomy and galactic evolution. And so when I do my own research, when I do my own papers, most of the time I work with these parameters. And because of this detective, I was very comfortable when I first picked up the project. So that's one very strict example that I have. But then I do not have a general answer to this. But what I can say is it depends on the project that you are in and the course of study that you are planning to take. So that will help you. That is going to that is how you can connect the dots and get yourself uh, get yourself in the academics. So David,
To
that
add, sorry. To add a comment regarding that, that also is going to depend a bit, I think, depending on how the career is structured in your university or country. For example, in my case, I think now they're changing a bit. I have to check, but the astronomy career was pretty much strictly theoric for the first 3 or 4 years until recently here in Cordoba, in FAMAF. So, for example, I was kind of feeling that I wanted to concentrate in observational astronomy. I was kind of okay. I want to do the career, but I want to do deal with data like we are doing in citizen science. So I was kind of like not so interested in the first years of the career because yeah, I want to deal with data, I want to analyze data, and thinking only studying mathematics for about 3 years was a turn off for me, for example. So that is going to change depending on how the career is structured. And that is going to change from university to university and country for country. So also that.
so thank you, Hugo, for your insights. David, did that answer your question? Okay. If there are no more questions, then thank you very much for having me here. And I look forward to interacting with all of you in one of these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you also again for having me here. So the video, this talk is going to have a video for people can watch it offline, just to know.
Yeah, it has been recorded on YouTube. So the recorded version will be available on YouTube on Hex-Star
Okay.
Universe channel.
No, just asking was my knee reaction as the archivist for all the projects, and I mean, I was also recording my own version in any. If was any problem with your recording, I have a copy of my own recording. So I was asking just to confirm that you have it.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, so thank you once again, Hugo. Thank you once again, Sumit, for sharing your experience and giving us the beautiful insights of citizen science. So I think we can end our session for today. And
Okay.
to the participants, I would like to tell you something that we are having 3 more sessions like this in this month. So stay tuned so that we can
Oh,
have
nice.
more and more sessions like this. And if you want to learn more about space and space technology, you can go to our website at www.hexstaruniverse.com. We are recently coming up with a payload masterclass. So I'll just put the link over here. If anybody wants to check out that course or want to register in that course, you can go and you can register yourself there. And thank you once again, Sumit and Hugo.
No, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward for what you are sharing. I'm going to inscribe in that.
Just give me a moment. I will just put the link over.
Yeah. Don't worry. But in my case, speaking of universities and such, doing the career is quite difficult in the sense you need to focus on that or work. Citizen science has been vital for me to be able to be in astronomy because we only the university were to win my only auction, I will not be here. So all this is very important. Oh,
I'll
okay,
just
I
put
have
the
the
link
link.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, excellent. Thank you.
So thank you for joining us once more. And with that, we can end our session for today.
Okay.
Bye bye,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful
Good
have
night.
a wonderful week.
Bye bye. Yeah.
Take care, everybody.